Well, Nigel, let's just do some team news. I guess Kal having to come off last week. Is he anywhere close for this weekend?
No, he's actually seeing somebody today to get a more extensive view on the severity of it. So we'll just have to see how that one is. Similar sort of area to last time. So no real update on that apart from he's going to be he won't be available this week.
And given how that last one sort of dragged on a little bit, is that a little concerning?
Well, hopefully it won't be, but I think for Kal that's probably been in his mind quite a bit. So we'll try and get to the bottom of it, and look, you just can't rush these things. So it's more about allowing him to deal with that, and we'll get him back as soon as we can. But as always with injuries, it's when we get them back, we want them to stay available. And that's the thing. So it's not about trying to rush him back.
You do have other options there, but the way he sort of stepped into a slightly unfamiliar role, that was impressive for him.
Yeah, but he's a good footballer. He's bright. He's played in lots of different positions. So I don't think it being unfamiliar necessarily was a problem for him. He's played in midfield before, as he has in many other positions. So somebody like Joe Williams, as I've pointed out in the last few weeks, he's come on and made a positive influence for us in games, and so he gets his opportunity. But it's when you've got a tight squad, you don't want to lose too many players, or certainly key players. But we'll just deal with it. It's fine.
And that's that's football, isn't it? You're on a nice little roll. Everything's going well, and there's always something, a little spanner to throw in the works somewhere, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's always spanners around.
So how do you, I guess, over time you deal with it, or you learn to deal with these things differently? Because at times you can kind of think, oh, why us? But you look like you're a lot more phlegmatic about it.
You're talking about me personally?
About how you deal with the kind of the slings and arrows.
Yeah, I don't. I try not to worry about it, because I know that we work really hard to minimise injuries, and certainly, you can control things in the training environment, but what you can't do is control things in a game environment. And it's probably no surprise that we, in the sense that we pick up an injury on probably the softest, worst pitch that we played on this year, and that's where the game's changed. So there's no point people talking about different generations and we used to play on this, that, and the other. It's about what you used to playing on, and I think the modern pitches, the modern training facilities are of a generally high standard, and sometimes you come across pitches which, if there is something going on, it probably finds it out. So it's unfortunate in a game situation, but like I said before, we'll just deal with it.
And you have been getting a couple of players back recently. Andi got a little bit of game time. Thomas is there. Are any of the others, Kane, getting closer to being involved?
Kane, not really, just because he's got a lot of catching up to do. And in terms of his training load, he's still quite a bit short. So he's had feedback from the staff today about that, and for him to be included in the squad, he's going to have to be a lot more robust, and especially with the type of injury that he's sustained, you can't go into games and training sessions without having the right level of fitness, and so he'll have to continue to work hard. He's worked hard to get back, and now he's going to have to make sure he continues to train in a way which gives him a better chance of having a positive impact when he is included. So, there's still plenty of time left in the season for that.
I don't think we've spoken to you since it was announced that Andi's taken over the captaincy. Was that? Yeah. Did you sort of stick to what you said and let the players choose it, or did you have any hand in it?
No, the only hand I had in it is Kurt asked me. He said that Andi was looking for me, and I just said, well, is it about the captaincy? And they said, well, said let them decide themselves. So the players just did it themselves in the dressing room, and for me that's I would intervene if I didn't trust the players, but as a group of players, it's more meaningful for them if they have somebody in charge who they want in charge. And you know, if Andy doesn't start games or he's not available, then you know we have other people who will take that mantle. So as far as I'm concerned, it's not the big deal that people make it out to be. I think Andy's very proud to wear the armband, and that's really good that is the case. But for me, it's more about how the players feel about it, and they seem happy, so I'm happy.
And he's definitely one of those who is a lead by example kind of leader, isn't he? He's somebody who I can imagine would be first out on the training ground, and you know he's going to give it all on a Saturday or a Tuesday night.
Yeah, he always gives everything. Yeah, but he can be vocal as well. He'll have a moan like most players, which as long as it's done in the right way in the right context, is fine. And but yeah, Andy cares a lot, and it means a lot to him, and he's spent a bit of time out of the team, and what he does in training sessions when he gets chances during games is does everything he can to make sure he catches everybody's eye, and that's the type of leadership which is really important. That is players doing something about the situation in a positive fashion. In other words, if you're in the side, stay there, and if you're not in there, work hard to get back. And that doesn't need words. That's just actions. As you've already said, lead by example.
And I wonder how you reflect on thinking, sort of 2 years since you've been here, and you're nearly getting that way. The state of it'll feel even longer, I'm sure, at some point. But the state of the dressing room in terms of morale and things that you had issues with at the start, compared to a situation where you're obviously happy now to let the players make more of those decisions. How happy are you with that evolution?
Well, it's evolved in a really positive fashion with difficult spells on the way, and the last window gave us an opportunity to accelerate that in terms of players either leaving or coming in, and that's something that you don't always have control over. So that's an important factor to consider. It's been a difficult journey so far in some ways, just because of the constraints that we're working to, but that doesn't mean that it's not also been rewarding. And look, the way I always look at my job is to try and look at what needs to be done and how we can do it given the set of circumstances which we work within. And so it's not about pointing out what's not right. It's about looking for solutions, and you have a better chance of being successful if the people that you work with are like-minded. And so it's as important as getting the right staff as it is getting the right players. And as I've said many times before, sometimes it's one of the hardest jobs in football is to move players on that you don't want, especially if they're getting paid well. So that's always something to consider. And I don't put everybody who's left in the same category. All I'm pointing out is that I have to, whether we have good spells, bad spells or indifferent spells, have to keep my eye very much on what the job is and the bigger picture is. And that's not always easy, especially when pressure mounts on either myself or us as a club because things aren't going the way that we want to. So it's just part of the job, I'm afraid.
Norwich this weekend, you lost at Carrow, but genuinely that's one of your best performances that I've seen this season. I guess you can take a lot of heart from the way you performed there and the way that you're playing at the moment.
Well, yes, but I mean they've had a change of manager, and they are one of the fittest sides in the division. They will again attack with a very expansive shape. They push the fullbacks on, and they will be a difficult team to play against. You're right, the game that we played down there, we rue our mistakes in that game, but also missed opportunities too. Really good game of football, and yeah, we could have won it on the day we lost it, but whether it'll be a similar game, it could look a similar game, but whether we're able to show a bit more control on this occasion remains to be seen. But they are still one of the better sides in the division, so we'll need to be at our best to continue our good run. But having said that, the players are in really good mood. They're in good form themselves, and we have competition within the group as well, which is definitely more. It's a tighter competition now, so players know that they're close to being in the side, and players who are in the side know that they have to work hard to stay there. And I think that's the best pressure that players can be put under by their peers, not necessarily by a manager or a coach. It's more beneficial to have an internal drive within the group to maintain form, and I think that's something which, you know, we work very hard to both promote and allow as well. I mean, that's the other thing. It's about letting the players have some level of whether it's ownership or whether it's just a ability to drive where we go.
Thank you very much.
Okay, cheers.
It's just on Kane Wilson made his comeback from injury on Sunday. How pleased are you for him that he's made that comeback? Because he must feel frustrated that he hasn't perhaps shown what he's capable of.
Well, look, it's always good for a player to make that first step in terms of a competitive game at whatever level, especially bearing in mind the type of injury that he's had. So, you know, he's sustained an injury which he's going to have to manage throughout his career now. So that's the reality of. You know, many players have had that sort of injury and have managed it very successfully. So it's not, you know, I'm not trying to build a picture which isn't a positive one, but he's playing catch up, and for him the frustrations of how the season started after having a very positive pre-season, you know, it's not always easy to deal with, and I think that's one of the things that it's always more obvious to concentrate on the players who are in the side and have an understanding of where they're at. But the players who aren't in the side or aren't close to being in the side or indeed are injured, you know, they have other problems to deal with. And some of them are psychological, but some of them are physical management too. And the recognition of players that they have to be not just equal to their peers, they've got to be better than to force their way back in and make up for lost time. It's a difficult thing. So, you know, we try and protect players by being as, not careful, but as thorough as possible with the rehab, so that when they come back, it's about them being able to step into it without worrying too much about other things. You know, when you've been out for a while with injury, the fact that you have to think about things means that you maybe won't be as slick a performer. So, you know, it's really imperative for somebody like him, because he is a player that likes to play with a freedom. He's got to be as fit as he can be, and that's the bottom line.
And when he does come back, he'll have to have patience, because George Tanner's been in that position and he's performed very consistently. How encouraged are you by his development?
Who's?
George Tanner.
Yeah, very, very much so. But if you remember when he joined us at the early part of last season, I think we pointed out at the time he's one for the future, and he's sort of dipped in and out on that season. He got opportunities when probably we didn't think he was going to get one, and he had to deal with a couple of injuries which were difficult for him to deal with. But he's made really good progress, not just in terms of as a player, but his status within the group has been, he's developed that himself by buying into what he needs to buy into, and that is understanding himself and being able to play the biggest part in his own development. It's not just about coaching from coach's perspective. It's about players understanding what's needed and understanding their own strengths and weaknesses. That's the bottom line.
Harry Cornick came on for his debut at the weekend.
Yeah.
You put him in that central role. Do you going to see that as his primary role going forward?
Probably, but again, when you play with three up top, and we play with one wider than the other, in possession, out possession, they've got their jobs to do, and they work as a 3 or as a 4 if you include Alex Scott in that 10 position. So, but we signed him as a player that we know is versatile, but the simple answer to your question is, I think he will offer a very interesting threat for us down the middle, just because of his aerial prowess, his ability to run, and he's got good pace too.
How was he settled in alongside Anis Mehmeti?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, very, very good. Yeah, they're both adapted very, very quickly. They're both training very well. And look ready for their opportunities when they come. And this is what I was saying previously, that it's really important that those players, although Anis didn't get his chance, he's a quick learner, and he's looking at everything through the eyes of a player who's saying, I know what I need to do when I get on. And so for the players who are in the team, they know that. So they know they've got to work hard to stay there. And that's the beauty of competition.
I was listening to Kal Naismith yesterday talking about Alex Scott, and he compared him with Steven Gerrard, which is quite an...
Yeah, I've not heard this.
No, but I was wondering if he reminds you of a player that you've kind of managed or
Who, Alex Scott?
Yeah, over the
not really.
Over the years.
No, not really. He's just a very unique talent, and he's got a very impressive temperament. So I think he's destined for the very top. But as football always, football dictates to you what's going to happen, because you can't always be in control of your own destiny totally. But Alex Scott will, I think, continue to progress, and he'll be a top player. But he also knows, and he has a humility, and he knows he's got to do it for us, wherever he's here, and he just enjoys playing football. So that's good to have young, hungry players at the club, as well as senior players who want to continue to perform and get better.
Is that a sign of his maturity, the way that he's been able to deal with the outside noise, because it is getting louder following his recent performances?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and on top of that, all the modern pitfalls for young players, which is social media, etc. So, but he's a young man who is driven and wants to be a success, and so look, all young men will make mistakes at some point, but what we have to do is give him the framework to go out there and be as good as he can be, wherever he's with us. And you got to remember, he's got a contract here for a couple more years yet. So for there to be any further speculation about his future, there's got to be something real happen. So he's our player at the moment.
Have you experienced during your time in management, and obviously I wouldn't ask you to name names here, but when a player does have that potential and that hype around them, that they have struggled to deal with that pressure to live up to those expectations?
Very much so, yeah, I've had it. But I don't need to go into naming people's names on that. But no. Yes, of course. And some real top players have doubts about themselves. That is, I think you've heard me talk before about sometimes senior players having baggage that youngsters don't have. So you can talk about young players not having fear, and you can also talk about senior players having experienced difficult things in the past, which is a bit of baggage that they have to deal with. And look, we're all different. We're all different, and I've worked with players who have have had doubts about themselves and have come through it. Yeah.
I saw a bit earlier, Tim Close had been working with the under-14s at Bristol City during his previous last months here.
Yeah.
Is the door
doing some coaching, yeah.
Is the door open for him to return from in a coaching
no,
capacity?
No. We try and help players who are on their journey in terms of their coaching qualifications, and he's done some work there. So no, and that's not for me anyway in terms of the academy to discuss the way in which they populate their staff. But what I would say is that they're always very welcoming of first team players who want to do some coaching. I also think it's good for the players who want to go down that route to do it internally. It's a good medium.
Sure. Thanks very much.
Okay, cheers.
Good afternoon, Nigel. Really positive result for the under-21s against Everton.
Yeah.
They're a Category 1 academy, Bristol City a Category 2. Is it testament to the staff at the football club to be competing and also out-achieving teams that play in the Premier League and results like this?
Look, the results that you get in academy are, of course, they're important as the lads get older, and certainly older. It's about educating players to not just on the technical aspects of it, but the game management and actually dealing with success and disappointment. So all those things together are. I can't give you one answer that's gonna cover it all. But yes, of course, it's pleasing for us to be able to compete with big clubs in the sense that for one result, but we don't really measure ourselves by that. We measure ourselves by the experience that the players get when they come into the building and when they leave, whether they're then going to have a successful career or not. So the academy process, I think I've spoken a lot in recent months about how we as a club are working hard to get across the board, across the footballing platform, the stage right for players. And let's be blunt about this. The academy, and any academy, has more failures than they do successes, and that's just the numbers game. So you have to make sure that when players, and there's some young lads in here today who are listening to me speak, and they are players who some may be successful and some not. Our job as a football club is to make sure that their journey is still a positive one for them. The bottom line is that the world of football is one ruthless place, and it is very much about trying to create and produce players that will play for our football team. And if we can't produce them for us, then we produce them for the game. But all the young men and women who come into the building all have a ambition to go and play for the first team, and that's what we want. We want people to be both ambitious and have dreams which they want to fulfill, and it makes for much better makes a much better story when you've got a football club which has a for want of a better word, it's a bit corporate and I don't like using them, but a better alignment. We have a good alignment here at the minute, but that has still been driven for the most part, I'll be blunt, by circumstances, because we need to look more at producing our own players because we're not able to go out and buy them. So, whatever the story is, the club's in a really good place at the moment in terms of where we are, but we can't stand still. And we don't intend to stand still. But yes, it's a good result, but sometimes players learn a lot more when they get beat or when they don't do well. So always good to be competitive, and let's remember that it is about winning, and it will always be about winning. But we have to make sure that for the younger players in particular, that the journey is still enjoyable, so that it's not just about win at any cost.
And those bigger clubs seem to be taking players from Championship academies or Championship Category 2 kind of academies. But at Bristol City, it seems that they're holding on to their best young talent. And obviously,
Well, we've got opportunity, haven't we?
Definitely.
Geographically, we're in a good position where there aren't too many people around us, so that's a good thing. But it's got to be, what do you want to do? Go to a big club and then not get a chance, or be at a club like ours where if you do well, you've got a chance of getting into the first team. So, that's where parenting becomes important.
And just on Kane Wilson, because he played that hour last week, would you say it's a bit more of a different challenge for him that obviously he's against Georgetown, whereas perhaps at the start
He's
of
got
the
to get
season?
fit first. He's got to be fit enough first. So he will be in contention when he's fit enough to be in contention. Until that point, then that's not something that I'm really going to discuss at the moment.
And just lastly, obviously with Andy being appointed captain, is there much change from an outfield player being captain to a goalkeeper, or would you say it's just the same really, or does it offer anything different perhaps on the...
I don't think about that. I don't think about it in that way. It's about the dressing room having the capability to manage itself. On the pitch, on a match day, I can't generalise about captaincy, because captaincy is different things for different people. So it's not something I'm too worried about. All I want is a group of players who are prepared to work hard as a group of players, and individuals within that group to stand up and show leadership when the team needs it. So for me, that's what it's about. The rest of it's just hot air. Okay?
Hi, Nigel.
Hi.
Yeah, looking into the game against Norwich, it's been 11 games without a win in the league against Norwich. I think the last one was like...
Well, I'm not interested in stuff like that. So, what difference does that make about anything? I'm not interested.
With their sort of transition stage as well, how good a time is this to pick up points against them?
I don't know whether it is a transition stage. They've got a manager who now is playing a similar way to the one, two before. He's worked with their director of football before. The board seemed to be happy with him as appointment. So again, I don't waste a lot of energy worrying about too much about them. We know what their strengths are. We know they're a good squad. We know they're fit, very, very fit physically. We know that they have lots of attacking options. We just have to be at our best. It's as simple as that. Probably more prudent to ask them what they think about playing us. Because we think on our day we can beat anybody. But as we've also proved this season, we can come unstuck when we're not quite right. So that's the Championship in a nutshell. And, I don't overthink stuff like that at all.
You spoke about the connection with the fans after the game against Preston, sort of the players celebrating with the fans after the game. How important will that connection be over the next few weeks, especially with some important games coming up?
It's always important. It's something that's that if the players feel that the fans are behind them, and I think more importantly, our fans see their team playing in a way which they can see an honesty and a real integrity about the work ethic, and players giving everything they've got. I think fans are more forgiving, and I think that's what we always need to do. But there's a bit more to it now, because we feel that we're playing pretty well. The squad's in a better position in terms of its dynamics, and I think it's important for us to go out there and give our fans something that they believe in, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
And Sam Bell in very good form recently.
Yeah.
It was a great decision to keep him around, of course. How important will he be over the?
Why would it not keep him in?
How important will he be for the rest of the season?
Don't know. It depends on whether he keeps scoring goals. Depends whether he keeps in good form. But look, I'm delighted for him. We all are. He's a player who's had to be patient. He's a really it's a good story. He's made his debut a couple of seasons ago now and experienced an injury, and he's had to observe people like Tommy Conway doing well. But he's bided his time, got his chance, and he's shown what an excellent finisher he is.